Pranam to each one of you from Buenos Aires still. A few more days, maybe a week or so. And let's begin with some words of invocation. Sometimes we explore different forms of Mangalacharan or bringing, not so much bringing blessings, but because the blessings are flooding us all over, but gaining awareness of the blessedness that surrounds us and opening ourselves to that. So I was listening to Bhakti Rasa saying welcome, 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 like 108 times, because there are many of you joining. It came to my mind, and I referred to this a few times, this beautiful, well-known welcoming prayer composed by Father Thomas Keating. So I just check it for it here, and maybe I will read it. Not maybe, surely. And that will be today's Mangalacharan, if you agree with me. I'll be sharing this in the chat just in case. There it is. So it says like this. And again, it's applicable to recite it once you begin your day, but also once we begin another chapter of the journey and meeting today, right now, right here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I welcome everything that comes to me today because I know it's for my healing. I welcome all thoughts, feelings, emotions, persons, situations, and conditions. I let go of my desire for power and control. I let go of my desire for affection, esteem, approval, and pleasure. I let go of my desire for survival and security. I let go of my desire to change any situation, condition, person, or myself. I open to the love and presence of God and God's action within. Amen. Gaud Haribo. So, beautiful prayer with lots of welcome and lots of letting go in the context of welcoming, right? It's an interesting balance because we can only welcome as much as we are able to let go what gets in the way of the welcoming. So, a few words just to remind ourselves what we are trying to do here in our quest and exploration. Not so much to bring explanation, not so much to bring closure, not so much to bring toxic certainty and security, but to remain open, to remain students forever, as Srila Siddhar Maharaj will say, to remain humbled by the mystery of it all. So welcome each one of you, and welcome all that needs to come today. So I'm part of letting go and welcoming everything. For me today is the unique uncertainty that nobody has raised their digital hand so far. So that's part of the uniqueness of today's meeting. And I hope you may welcome also my improvisation in the context of that. I'm probably forcing some of you to bring some topic with or without your choice, right? As I'm surprised by you, you can be surprised by me. But just in case, if you just joined for the first time or whatever, those who will like to bring a question or a topic you may like to explore together in greater depth, generally the system is to raise a digital hand. Or if for whatever reason you cannot do that, you don't know how to do that, you can let us know or send a written message in the chat. But ideally, you can raise your digital hand if you can and you know how to do it. And gradually we'll try to honor whatever offerings you have. And I'm seeing a few digital hands coming. Maybe you were terrified about me forcing yourself to speak, so thank you for that. So let's begin. UK is taking the lead today. Now Sweden is there entering into the competition. So let's begin with Radha Priya from England. Welcome, Radha Priya. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. I just, I was so touched by your beautiful prayer. The welcome.
It's not mine.
Prayer.
It's not mine. It's Thomas Keating.
The one that you shared.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say that when I came on just now and met Bhakti Ras very briefly, and she said, "How are you?" And I said, "Oh, actually, I'm very tired. I've got some kind of post-viral fatigue for about 9 weeks. And I said, but it's giving me the opportunity to practice gentleness and patience, which is very welcome. So that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you. I love that prayer. But you didn't say did you say where it was from? I didn't catch it.
I mentioned, yeah, it's composed by Father Thomas Keating.
Oh, yes.
So that's the source of the prayer.
That's so
Welcoming
beautiful.
prayer. Yeah, it's a nice one. I used for some time to basically first thing in the day where I wake up to recite it with some slight adaptations, but mostly, yeah, the willingness to welcome it all. So thank you.
So yeah, I'm welcoming gentleness and patience in the inability to have strength for the time being.
Oh yeah, I
Thank
can
you.
definitely. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I can definitely relate to that also. Sometimes the body and health doesn't accompany as you may like or as we think the system should work. And yeah, it's part of the welcoming. And I'm glad that also you were, how to say, brave enough to reply to a question like the one Bhaktarasa presented or anyone presents to us on a daily basis. How are you? Not just with the, I'm fine, thanks. Okay, everything's perfect. All right. Like, I don't know how if they do it like that in Europe, but here in Argentina, they're even more evasive. They say, how are you doing? Everything okay, right? And don't dare to say no, because we get into trouble then. So it's you just need to say yes and let's move forward, right? How are you doing? Everything's perfect, okay? Yes. So I'm glad that you say no. There is something there that I'm working on. I mean, doesn't mean that everything is not good, but just that we add some nuance to the yes or to the no. So thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, let's continue with the next offering, whatever form it takes. Now, still coming from England. Now we go to Yamuna.
Okay, so you did cover this in some of the Bhagavatam classes that you gave, but either I'm forgetting, which is very, very possible, or I just didn't catch things correctly, which is very possible, or I'm barking up the wrong tree. All of these things are possible. So here's my question. It's in regards to the Bhagavatam that we have now, the handed down script that we have now. How, because even with Srila Prabhupada's translation, some of the translations of word for word aren't, like he might bring in a word that isn't actually in the Sanskrit. And this isn't me criticizing, it's just, you can just check some of the translations, word for word translations, and they're just not there. So, and again, no criticism, and I'm very blessed to have been nourished by his heart. How do we know how, I don't know if this is even the right English word, but anyway, I'm going to fumble my way through this, that this is the authentic Bhagavatam? I don't know. I could waffle on, but I feel like I'm going to go around in circles. So there we go.
Say a little bit more. You have a few more words to share. Why not?
I don't know if I have words to share or if I'm just, yeah. How do we know that the translation we have hasn't been, because I believe you were saying how, villages had the Bhagavatam and it was passed down through oral reception until it was written. So how do we know that somebody who was passing down wasn't having a bad day that day? They might have had a bug, or they might have just, got out the wrong side of the bed that day. How do we know that there isn't some other thing put in there of what was originally there?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Does that make any sense?
But now the question is shifting from Prabhupada's translation to the original Bhagavatam somehow. I mean, it's connected, but maybe.
It's just that connection of how people can put in their because we know that it's happened with Prabhupada. So how do we know it hasn't happened before and then happened before and happened before? So how do we know the authenticity of the script that we actually have? Does that make a bit more sense?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, I may personally point to a few, I don't know, I don't want to say like flaws in the question itself, but somehow the question includes some assumptions, which is like authenticity is tied to something that where there has not been any addition or any elaboration, let's put it that way, any whatever. But I wouldn't say that's the case. Like, for example, Srila Prabhupada's translation of the Bhagavatam, as you say, if you go to the word by word and you go to the general translation of the verse, there may be some words that are not in the word by word. But that doesn't mean that, of course, the whole thing is inauthentic, or even that translation is inauthentic. That will be more akin to what's in Sanskrit known as bhavanubad, which means like a rendering based on emotion. I mean, not mundane emotion in this case, like emotional rendering, like a conveying of the spirit of the text beyond the literal translation of it. And there is a big tradition of that. Again, the term there is because many people translate the texts in that way. And someone may argue, well, then you don't call it a translation. Okay, because some people may say translation is, and even if you want to be as literal as you can to translate something from Sanskrit to English, let's say, still, as they always say, something is lost in translation. Now, there are many sayings about the betrayal of translation and some play of words between these two. Not to say, therefore, you have all to learn Sanskrit, because if not, you are missing the real thing and you are not going to Golok Vrindavan or whatever. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying, just the very fact that you are translating something from Sanskrit into English, I don't say something lost necessarily, but something is not exactly the same. And in the same way, someone may be translating something in different ways, like Prabhupada himself, as you may recall, when his Bhagavad Gita was published and someone asked him, so what's the next book you are planning to publish? And he said, probably a translation of the Bhagavad Gita. And he had just published a translation of the Bhagavad Gita. So everyone was a little bit confused. And he said, but you just published one, they said. And he chuckled and said, like, there can be so many translations of the Bhagavad Gita. With this implying, again, the same verse, we can translate it in so many ways, and all of them are correct. So my point with all this is we should be careful not to be reductionistic into this idea of which is the one authentic way of reading this verse. Wrong question. And that's why, as we spoke in the Bhagavatam study, there are acharyas who have, for example, explained the first verse of the Bhagavatam in 100 different ways. And therefore, you don't have the question like, which one of the 100 is the authentic one? Wrong question. It's so authentic that you can bring so many renderings and all of them are authentic, which is not the same as anything and everything goes, right? Because also one can go to that place and, okay, I will write my own purports, and that has to be authentic also. Not necessarily. So I will say at the end of the day, how do we know this is bona fide or not? Because if we want to enter into the doubting game, which I'm not against to in one sense, I mean, some healthy level of skepticism is good for not being a blind follower of anything. But again, not to the point that we doubt about everything and anything, because as Krishna says, for the one who doubts for the sake of doubting, there is no happiness in this world or the next. So doubt has a purpose, but it's not an end unto itself. But my point is, if we would like to doubt, again, is the Bhagavad, I mean, one can doubt so many things. And I know that for many practitioners of religion or spirituality, doubt has been kind of stigmatized or forbidden, like don't dare to doubt anything. That's like heresy, and somehow you're breeding cult members there. No? If there's no place for any type of questioning. So some people may come with questions, right? Like, okay, I have a doubt. Is this genuine? Did Krishna actually speak the Bhagavad Gita? How do we know that what Vyasa revealed in the Bhagavatam is samadhi and it's not something relative? I mean, there is place for all those questions, which doesn't mean that you are losing faith, you are becoming an atheist. It may just be the questions that someone will have at certain stage of the journey, maybe in the beginning, when they have no experience whatsoever, what's this all about, and they go on the temple on day one and they receive all this set of absolutes as a welcome, and they're like, wait. How do you know this? How do you know? Or eventually, or some people may have not put that filter on day one and they practice and followed pretty blindly, as some did, and at one point they feel the need to doubt things that they feel they should have doubted 35 years ago. And that may feel like a faith crisis, or some may go through it like I'm a betrayer, but that may be a necessary peeling of certain layers to get to a more experiential understanding of it all. But at the end of the day, whatever the case, I would say that the proof, how to say in English, the proof is in the pudding or something like that, pudding. No? Susukam, what Krishna says in 9.2 Gita, Pratyaksha Bhagamam Dharmim. So you can understand this dharma, this bhakti dharma, by personal experience alone. So you can doubt all you want, it's fine. But the point is that if you want to prove if this is for true or not, if this is a fake or not, then you have to have your own experience. That's inescapable. And many times that's the main thing we are escaping from. We surround ourselves with concepts, with ideas, with loyalty, with institutional membership cards, all these things that offer us certainty and security just to prevent us from a genuine actual experience. Carl Jung said that one of the main things that religion has given to the world is prevention from genuine experience. Right? Because they give a set of dogma and doctrine and affiliation, and you just say yes to this and you are saved. But you don't need to have your own experience. And that's tragic, of course. So at the end of the day, that's how we know Bhagavatam is authentic. That's how we know all these things are not made up. So you have to embrace, I mean, and it's not you choose. But at the end of the day, there has to be some leap of faith in the sense of, again, if we want everything to be certain in advance before taking any single step, probably we won't be doing anything in life. So if you follow my point, and we always speak about trust and confidence, and as we say, trust and confidence involves some degree of uncertainty. Because if everything is certain in advance, then how can I speak of trusting anything? So we can make our questions, of course, we can have our doubts, hopefully satisfied by proper explanations and ideas, but there's a point that you need to have your own experience. And then you can decide for yourself if this is true or not, at least for you. But because even if you conclude this is not true, you should qualify that sentence with "for me," because how can you absolutize your own experience, right? Some people can tell me, "No, I've chanted the Mahamantra and I felt nothing." Okay, but don't make an absolute statement that therefore those who feel something are delusional because I felt nothing. No, on your own case, and hopefully have enough introspection as to wonder why I'm feeling nothing, what so many others are feeling something else. So, and again, regarding some relative elements in the text, that's we have talked about that. There are elements that are pertaining to culture, to time, to place, but that doesn't mean that Vyasadeva had a bad day on that day. No, because that's a different thing. When we speak about someone having a bad day, also we are bringing into the picture some level of conditioning. And at least from our perspective, we will say that Vedic revelation is a parousia, which is beyond human imperfection. And of course, it's a big claim. I know that quickly we may activate defense mechanisms like, wait, how can you bring such an absolute statement? But at the same time, we cannot doubt entirely that statement until and unless we apply ourselves in connection to the truths coming from that source. Because if I am quick to say, no, that's wrong, that's bad, but we hadn't done our part fully, then that's a bias also. So we can have biases in both directions, right? So yeah, we have to keep that balance. And I wouldn't put in the same box again some expressions that are, I don't know, a particular wording and crafting of an idea according to how people will think and speak in a certain place 2000 years ago. I wouldn't put that as that's the same as the author had a bad day and wrote this or that. Because again, many times, like we have tried to share as much as we were able to continue with the Bhagavatam series, we tried to share a few examples of how we may have read certain sections of the Bhagavatam or any scripture for that matter, and we were sure that this is dysfunctional, and we were sure this is wrong, and we were sure probably even Vyasa had a bad day. And then we heard another explanation that actually showed us, oh no, I was having a bad day while reading the Bhagavatam, and I was projecting my bad day onto Vyasa's bad day, or whatever. Right? I was filtering. I mean, we should not underestimate our filters and our biases. And that's, again, we try to gain some awareness in our study of, how much we are bringing into the study of scripture from our own baggage, from our own journey, and how much are we willing to be disarmed by revelation, disarmed by the sacred word, to allow ourselves to be read to begin with, and not so much claiming, I want to read and understand this, without me first being read many times, without me first being undressed, disrobed by the words of God. And hopefully I'm not sounding like a fanatical preacher or anything, but that's kind of a very basic foundational faith we have that, again, some may need to question, but still that's there. No, the faith that Shastra revelation is not it's not man-made, but is divinely revealed, divinely inspired, whatever the case. And for us to to have an experience of how that revelation is such of a divine background, we need also to align our lifestyle in a certain way, because if not, we cannot expect to have that experience, right? Bhagavatam was spoken by Vyasadeva in Samadhi Bhasha, the language of Samadhi. But if we are not willing to do what it takes to access Samadhi, we cannot demand to understand what Samadhi is about, right? It's like, I don't know, I would like to fully empathize with what Beethoven was experiencing while composing classical music. But probably then you need to train yourself into that music for a few lifetimes, and then you will be able to connect with that. If not, you could say, oh, nice music, but to be deeply empathic with that, you need to enter into that world, right? So that's what I will say. At the end of the day, it's about personal experience. If in advance we can have questions that we can ask, how do we know if this is this? How do we know? But the point is that no amount of empiric or logic evidence we can provide in advance can fully convince us, okay, this is totally bona fide, this is totally authentic. Because the final proof, again, is in the taste of the pudding, right? I can talk to you and try to bring arguments and history and testimonies and logic and this about the Bhagavatam, about this or that, while acknowledging relative elements there which do not cancel the substantial golden thread of it. But still, if we want to doubt, we will continue doubting. I mean, and I'm not condemning those who are there for whatever reason they may still need to doubt. So the final proof is when you have an undeniable direct experience. Undeniable, and the undeniable experience of transcendence is, as I always like to say, too real to deny, but also too vast to fully comprehend. So it's undeniable, but you cannot assert yourself because of having the experience. It's too humbling at the same time. I'm totally humbled, and I'm totally reassured about the reality of this. So we should be trying to align our life so that becomes actualized. We have the experience. Because if not, it's more like from a theoretical place, like from a distance, right? Without being fully involved into a reality that we are trying to understand from I don't know, like sitting on a seat on the stadium, like sometimes in Argentina, soccer is very popular. And of course, people follow soccer and people love to insult the players and to say they should have done that play, he should have moved. But they are saying all that from the high seat of the stadium. They are not right there in the arena. So they have a very different perspective of what it feels like to be on the fire, so to say. So it's easy for us to be sitting, and I'm not saying you are doing that, Jim, I'm just talking in general. Sometimes we take that seat and we may need to take that seat, but we should be careful not to analyze and judge and project conclusions just from there without having that particular vantage point of what it means to be an active participator of that reality. Because from there, things look pretty different. So we should be trying our best to enter into the arena. And I will say the more we do that, gradually all those doubts find their clarity. And we gain a clearer vision of what's the golden thread, as we have used that term in the Bhagavatam series, and which are other elements which pertain to time, place, circumstance that are not threatening the golden thread. But we should develop a discernment to put each one into place. I don't know if something of that helps.
Yeah, I mean, where my inquiry came from, and I definitely wasn't saying that Srila Vyasadeva himself was having a bad day. That's, I haven't gone that far.
Well, I may have thought that, so I'm just trying to.
No, not from me. But it's like,
I mean, he had a bad day definitely in the Bhagavatam itself when he was so frustrated that Narad Muni came. So he had a few bad days, but not the bad days we have, right? It's another type of bad day. So,
yeah,
but
so my
just
thought,
yeah.
my thought came because even with Srila Prabhupada's books, he's only been physically not with us for 50 years, but his books, for whatever reasons, are being adapted or changed in one way or another. There's lots of changes that have taken place. So my thought was, from when the Bhagavatam thousands of years ago was spoken, how much of that has been changed in 50 years of Srila Prabhupada gone. He's have already changed in thousands of ways. Thousands of words have been changed. So that was my train of thought.
Yeah, of course, it's slightly different each example because, again, the Bhagavatam has been passed on in parampara, in oral ways, eventually in written form. And there are other Puranas and other books that mention how many verses the Bhagavatam had and certain elements that you can go and prove in the book. Still, truth be told, there are some other Vaishnava Sampradayas who have different ideas about the Bhagavatam, about like a few verses are an interpolation, a few, or Madhva Sampradaya, which will say, for example, the whole Brahma Vimohan Lila is an interpolation. Of course, they say that, but they don't have any proof. It's mostly because in Brahma Vimohan Lila, Brahma is bewildered, and Brahma is the original guru of their Sampradaya. And so it's difficult for them to acknowledge that. But Mahaprabhu accepted that as a crucial part of the Bhagavatam. So in that sense, we would say, well, the Bhagavatam was passed on for a couple thousands of years through different lineages, and all of them have their own editions. And I will say most of the main body of the text concord in all these lineages. So it's not that we have like all these many Vaishnava Sampradayas, or even not Vaishnava Sampradayas. Advaita Vedanta studies the Bhagavatam, and each of them have their own very ancient copies of the Bhagavatam, and mostly all of them have the same book for thousands of years. So it's not like it's the same with what you're referring to Prabhupada in 50 years, which still the original books are there. But at the same time, we know that there are some changes to the books, while some others, again, that's a different conversation. But of course, there is some tension there in terms of preserving the originals versus adjusting the originals to the times we are living in, which for me, again, that's another conversation. I personally more of the idea is of preserving the originals as for what they were, historical documents, but composing new books and new commentaries for the contemporary audience and with new freshly insights, rather than pushing on keep Prabhupada books but change them to the point that at one point you can no longer say they're Prabhupada books, but somehow they are. We are not betraying that idea, which again for me it's not so dynamic. For me it's we have all these commentaries for each one of the acharyas, and I would say big part of Prabhupada's commentaries are also very time, place, and circumstance centered, right? Very localized to the audience he had in mind for that time, which is perfect. I mean, I have no problem with that. And he himself, again, like the example I gave with the Bhagavad Gita and others, he encouraged new commentaries, new works, further unfolding, new realizations. So that's for me how you keep the current alive while preserving the original documents, whatever books we are talking about. As with the Bhagavatam, and again, that's why Jiva Goswami, one of the reasons Jiva Goswami picks the Srimad Bhagavatam as the main pramana or scriptural epistemological evidence for us, is that the Srimad Bhagavatam is complete in its entirety, where many other Vedic texts are not complete. Now, there are many parts lacking, like we spoke about in the Bhagavatam introduction, how there's just less than 10% of the Vedas in their entirety and so on and so forth. But the Bhagavatam is complete, not only complete, again, it's declared to be the essence of Vedanta, the essence of this and that, but it's complete, which doesn't happen with other texts. And again, it has been passed on through different lineages and paramparas and sampradayas orally in a written way. And there is almost full consensus that that's the complete text, again, with a few exceptions like the one I mentioned. And even if we want to make a whole case about that, okay, there is one verse that some argue is an interpolation, or one chapter. Okay, even if you want, I give you that. I don't agree, but I give you that. It doesn't change at all the golden thread of the Bhagavatam. So that's for me when we also need to remain Saragrahi, essential, and not get stuck in that. That will be my footnote to your footnote. I don't know I hope that helps. You tell me.
Thank you for the footnote.
It was more than a footnote, but anyway.
No, but very good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right.
Very helpful.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I think the important thing is preserving the. I mean, that's for me. I remember Father Richard Orkey used the word that alternative orthodoxy, right? Like he will say, like, I'm orthodox, but in an alternative way, in the sense that I'm not like old school copy paste orthodox, like only what it was say 3,000 years ago, copy paste and just do it, nothing new to add, but alternative orthodoxy. I'm deeply grounded in tradition, in the original revelation of whatever school, but in a dynamic way. There's always fresh insights to bring about. But what I see sometimes, and that's a problem, because I would say that only those who are deeply familiar with the essence of their tradition, who are deeply rooted in tradition, can be the ones who can bring fresh new insights to the tradition, because they know what the tradition is about to begin with. Now, the problem that I see many, not in every person, of course, that will be absurd, but in many places in our tradition and probably in other traditions, is that most people are not familiar enough with their own tradition. And therefore, whatever they try to do in the name of renewing the tradition or adjusting it is not very loyal to the original purpose because they don't know the original teaching to begin with. Do you follow my point? So I will say you can only be a dynamic, alive, vibrant representative of a tradition and bring new insights, not only adapt the language to contemporary languages, interacting with disciplines of different types, but bring new depth and breadth and insight. You can only do that if you know what the tradition is all about to begin with. But if you don't spend enough time there, then whatever you try to do to whatever you want to call it, adjust the teaching, preaching strategy, beat bridge preaching, or whatever, probably will be a watering down and a diluting of the actual message rather than an enriching of it, right? And interestingly, those people, when someone is genuinely enriching the message, they will think they're betrayers of the message because they cannot follow the thread. They don't understand what they are talking about because they are talking about something that they do not know about in the first place. You follow my point? Someone is bringing a fresh insight coming from the ancient tradition. Whomever knows the ancient tradition will recognize, oh, that fresh insight, I know where it's coming from. I can trace back to the root of it. But if they are not familiar with the root, that fresh insight will sound like heresy or deviation because they are not familiar with the root to begin with. And there are degrees of all this. It's not black and white, but I think that's why it's so important. Even beyond we think about preaching or adjusting the message, remaining relevant to the contemporary world, bringing new novel insight. First you have to learn what you're talking about. And again, I don't want to sound too rigid in terms of learning verses of stuff like that, but sometimes they will just come to me with this and that, and I'm like, do you know what's the basic definition of bhakti given in our tradition? Maybe you cannot quote me the Sanskrit verse, or at least you tell me what the verse says. And to my cringy moment at the present, in this current moment, I'm saying that most of the devotees do not know that. They do not even know which verse is that, who wrote the verse, in which book the verse is. And probably many of you are wondering now, which verse is that? And again, I don't want this to sound like it's all about learning verses. I don't want to sound like that, but at the same time, there is a place to know what you are being part of. Now, if you say, okay, I'm a Gaudiya Vaishnava and I practice bhakti. Okay, so how will you define? There's a definition of bhakti, not to put bhakti into a box and limit it to a definition, but as a starting point. Because if I don't even know the starting point, how much can I go deep, expanding infinitely into all that bhakti can be if I'm not familiar with a coherent ground basic definition? So things like that. So yeah, no wonder there is some importance about spending time with revelation and getting familiar with it. Again, not as an intellectual committing to memory thing only, but developing a relationship with that. Okay, breakout room for a few minutes before we return to Vishaka and Sherry, who have been raising their hands. So we invite you for a few minutes to continue churning whatever has churned your heart from what you have shared so far. And yeah, see you in a few moments back. Welcome. As we say today, welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to everything that happened. I hope you had a good sharing in the group, exploring the topic we just tried to say something about. I'm seeing John's comment that I appreciate, that Nietzsche was saying something similar to what we were mentioning, that to be able to critically analyze and therefore limit its philosophical system is by first being schooled in it. Exactly. No? Sometimes you see that especially in the Indian tradition, where there are so many sometimes debates or attempts to refute different systems or show the superiority of one's own system, that of course, in order to critique the other system, you have to be familiar with it. And many times you realize those who are criticizing, if you, I don't know, one as a Gaudiya Vaishnava, I don't know, you can read Jiva Goswami's Sandarbhas and you see his critique of Advaita Vedanta at times. And he knows Advaita Vedanta very much in depth, probably more than many Advaita Vedantins. And the other way around. Some Advaita Vedantis may critique Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and you may realize, wow, they know things about Gaudiya Vaishnavism I didn't know. So they are the ones who are critiquing the tradition are more familiar with it in their criticism than some of those who are accepting the tradition without knowing what they are fully accepting. That's an interesting phenomenon. So anyhow, again, this is not about intellectual prowess, but yes, about becoming familiar with what you're part of. If I say I'm a Christian and I ask you, so which part of the Bible you love? Oh, I don't know, I have no idea what the Bible is about. It's like, well, what's going on here? Right? Oh, I practice bhakti. Okay, what's bhakti? Well, bhakti is, and you start like to just rumble. What your tradition says, your bhakti tradition says about bhakti, I have no clue. So how much can one practice bhakti if you don't have a clue what you are practicing about, right? So it's basic coherence. Anyhow, I hope you had a good time in the groups, and as we did last week, allow me to invite a few of you to share your insight from the private rooms. Pradhan and Gopika, how did it go for you? Any jewel you were able to discover in the ocean of the churning with your fellows in the groups, fellow brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I think the main point for me was that, sometimes we read, or sometimes I read the Srimad Bhagavatam or any other scripture, and I don't understand what the verse is about because I don't have the experience. And then I just put it aside and, have faith that maybe at a certain point in my life, or maybe in another life, I will have the capacity to understand it.
Yeah, which is part of the process, but also, of course, I will say it shouldn't be just like the immediate resource whenever we don't understand something like, okay, hopefully I understand it in the future. In case we can do something to gain a further understanding outside of ourselves, of course, if my understanding reaches a limit, the importance of, gaining further insight from other students. But sometimes, it's healthy to put it into silence, so to say, and pray for further revelation. Whom else would like to share some thoughts? Madhapur Sangam.
I just had the thought that because we were talking about whoever speaks the Bhagavatam, and I thought maybe there is even just one, even if someone is speaking the Bhagavatam and has not full realization from it, even there is something what someone can learn from it, or there's one small revelation from it, and so the others can take one step further. And I think the essence will be always there, and it say that the knowledge comes from within. So if we adjust ourselves accordingly and do our work, then the more progress we are doing, then it doesn't comes more from the outside. It's more the knowledge comes from within.
So that's a question now.
Yeah, that could be another question.
You're tricking me because Vishaka is in the list in the order of the queue. But of course, I will say it's not just about receiving knowledge in terms of theory, but also let's not forget that, of course, one thing is you said people speak in the Bhagavatam without full realization of it. Well, first of all, there's no full realization as if a dead end, right? It's not like a moment you gain full realization, which means there's nothing else to be realized. That doesn't happen. There's always something new coming. That's what the Bhagavatam says in the third verse, right? Pibata Bhagavatam rasam alayam. Drink the rasa of this Bhagavatam even beyond the liberated state. So on a post-liberated status, you continue to discover the Bhagavatam. So yeah, the rule will be you try to speak according to your current realization, right? Because technically speaking, you cannot do anything else but that. Even if you fake that you have more realization than the one you have, you cannot get there just by faking it. So that's why the Bhagavatam also starts saying this book is understood by those who are. It's not about cheating in the name of religion. Dharma prayita kaitavo. It's on the contrary. But still, apart from gaining knowledge, listening from someone, learning from someone, it's not just an intellectual exchange. Ideally, it's an exchange of the heart, right? Because we are hearing not only information, hopefully, but a transformed heart, which is ideally the one we are listening from, conveying some knowledge, but accompanied by experience. So that creates unto itself an experience for us. Again, externally, it seems you are in a class listening to words from a book, but if it's coming with a feeling, with an experience, with a realization, that will impact on us if we are welcoming all that, as we were talking today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So it's not just theory. There is also realization, experience, something coming from the inside, because and once it is coming from the outside, I'm listening to that person. But what is coming from the outside is coming from the inside of that person to hopefully to my inside. So at the end of the day, it's a very insight, and then you can have an insight, right? If it's coming from the inside of both sides, given from the inside, received from the inside, that creates an insightful moment. Insight means you are seeing internally. So yeah, I think that's the invisible part that needs to take place always. Apart from, again, as you say, what we do in the day to day and how we try to apply ourselves in life in a proper way, that's another aspect of it. Yeah. Anyhow, I don't want to take too much time with this particular topic. I mean, I won't, but there are some other raised hands. I'm seeing Mukunda raising his hand. I don't know if it's a question or it's something you would like to share regarding this topic. Because if it's a question, I will give priority to the original order. But you tell me.
It's something from the topic. This is
okay.
perhaps
First
youngest
of
member of
all, greetings to the baby over there.
Yeah, Radhe bolo.
Newly born over there. Welcome to the tribe.
Leela. So we've been reading the Bhagavad Gita for Leela since she was born. And last night we were reading chapter 9. There's a verse, because this is speaking about text being updated or interpreted with nuance given. So in chapter 9, there's a verse about the lesserness positionally of women, of Shudra caste. And so this just came up for me in conversation because last night we came across that verse and I thought to myself, wow, that's something I'm really wondering about, is how is movement and how would you, Swami Padmanabha, communicate such a verse to Leela, to, when she becomes verbal.
Leela is your daughter, just in case to clarify to the audience, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And do you have the exact number of the verse, just in case, so we are not thinking about different verses, because
gosh,
we require some specificity.
I do. I'm gonna put you here. It'll take me
Yeah, I think it's probably verse 32, which speaks about like those who take shelter in me, though they are on lower birth, and it appears to say women, Vaishyas, Sudras can attain the supreme destination, right?
Yes.
Okay, Leela there confirmed the whole thing. Yeah, okay, I'll briefly respond to that. I hope that helps. Thank you. So that's a verse which I will say, it doesn't say that originally. Krishna is saying there, mam hi parta vyapashritya yepishu papayonayaha. Papayonayaha means people born of a lower family. And then comes to say striyo vaishyas tata sudras. Like women, striya, vaishyas, mercantile class, so to say, and Shudras, working class, Tepi Yanti Param Gatim. They can attain the supreme destination. Of course, in the overall, it's saying everyone can attain the supreme destination. So main thing of the verse, just to keep in mind, is a very liberal statement, which is no matter your background, there's chance and opportunity for all and everyone to attain Paramgati, the supreme destination. So I think that's an important place to begin with the verse. And of course, that's a context, right? That's verse 932. We are almost reaching the zenith of the Gita, which is 934, most important verse, where Krishna is saying, Manmanabha mat bhakto. And after saying so beautiful things, so many beautiful things, he's speaking about bhakti. So here is Krishna speaking very emotionally. Again, it's important not to isolate, to create some emotional isolation of the verses, like just taking them apart and putting them in the laboratory, but understanding who is speaking, from which place, what was said before and after. And Krishna is speaking in a very emotional moment here, glorifying his devotees and bhakti, and speaking about the efficacy of bhakti, and saying basically, bhakti for everyone, and whomever embraces bhakti, no matter their background, they attain the supreme destination. I'm going to the main question, but I think this is important to have it in place to understand what comes next, which actually the verse is not saying, and this is something that I don't know who, if that was Prabhupada or that was his editors, we may never know. But the verse, at least how it's, I don't know, probably you read Srila Prabhupada's translation, I'm assuming, I don't know. But in that translation it says, and I'm reading it here now, O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, and then comes an M dash and says, women, Vaishyas, and Shudras, they can attain the supreme destination. So how the verse is translated, it seems to say that women, Vaishyas, and Shudras are of lower birth. But that's not what the verse says originally. The verse is saying, those of lower birth, comma, woman, comma, Vaishyas, Shudras, comma, comma. It's a comma. It's not like lower birth, here comes the guys of lower birth, because it doesn't make sense. Just to give you an example, it says Vaishyas. Vaishyas are, if we want to speak, I don't know, if someone said, oh, that's from the Vedic perspective, and from the Vedic perspective, those of lower birth are, I don't know, those who cannot receive the sacred thread. Sometimes people think like that. Okay, Vaishyas are there in the list, and Vaishyas do receive the Upavita, the sacred thread. So it wouldn't make any sense to call a Vaishya someone of lower birth. Just to give you an example of how that particular way of rendering the verse is not used. So the point is, women are not mentioned there as lower birth people. They are just one among the list of all people, basically. And in this particular context, if you want to understand the Vedic situation, it's okay, women at that time, mostly, they didn't receive a Vedic education, not because they were not qualified, because again, in the Vedas you find the Vedic Rishikas, or female seers, but generally, due to the times and the social dynamics, women were not receiving a full Vedic education. And Krishna is saying, despite not having that Vedic education, you can attain all perfection. Despite not being this, you can attain this. Again, it's not an ontological statement about, it's not a statement about the ontological situation of woman, which unfortunately I know that has, these verses like this have been weaponized to prove, quote unquote, women are inferior, less intelligent, more lusty, lower birth, they cannot be gurus, and blah, 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 blah. But the verse is not saying that. The verse is just giving a list of different types of people, like bringing, okay, let's bring women, Vaishyas, Sudras, these of lower birth, like outcasts, let's say, or people of whatever you want to bring in the list. The Brahmin is not anything. The point of the verse is anyone can attain full perfection. That's the spirit of the verse. And it's tragic that in such a liberal, loving, universal spirit that everyone can attain the goal, people have taken that verse in a way to push down certain classes as inferior and create the exact opposite of what the verse is trying to create, right? The verse is completely comprehensive and open. Everyone is welcome to perfection. I mean, people took that verse to say, these are inferior, and creating all these toxic hierarchies, which is a misreading of the verse. And yeah, sometimes it's important then to go to the original and realize there is no M dash here after sinful birth and woman come as the first in the list of sinful people. That's not what it says. Sinful birth, comma. So if you put a comma, it means basically you could make even the argument sinful people are something else, and then comes woman. No, so to say. I mean, not to say that woman cannot be sinful. It's not also to overpraise every single woman like an angel, so to say, but not to make a case out of this. So yeah, I'm sorry that the translation seems to convey that. I cannot tell you who was involved in the very last details and who put that blessed M dash there. But at the end of the day, I will say we shouldn't get stuck on an M dash for eternity, and try to clarify whatever needs to be clarified, move forward, right? But I appreciate the raising of the topic, Mukunda, because I will say maybe that's one of the main verses. Actually, I recently saw a video, very sad one, of one of these devotees who proposed women cannot be gurus, and one of his main reasons is basically he's based on this particular verse we just shared. That Krishna say, I'm not saying, he was saying, I'm not saying it. He says Krishna is saying it, that women are of lower birth. It's not me. I'm just following Krishna. So then you make a whole case for submissiveness, right? I'm just following Krishna, and he's saying there that women are lower, and therefore they cannot be guru. And I'm just repeating what Krishna is saying, and I'm being criticized by that. And again, I'm not blaming that person. Maybe that person is really reading the verse in that way and cannot understand that the verse actually says something else. Maybe there are some different agendas and biases. I don't know. But the original verse is saying what it's saying. So, case closed. We want to leave everything open, but some things you have to make it clear in place. Okay, let's go to the next question, which came from Vishaka from Sweden. And then we have Sherry.
Okay, Hare Krishna, everybody. Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question, or is maybe not a question, but it's something that I wanna. Yeah, it is a kind of a question. It's a very personal one, but I still want to share it because I pray that the words are gonna come now. I didn't write anything down, so. I have some friends. As an old ISKCON devotee, I have friends from ISKCON, and these are the only devotee friends I have, really. If I were to share with them my experiences that I have learned after I have been following you, listening to your explanations and everything that you have so generously shared with us, I risk losing these friendships. And I think it's extremely sad. It makes me very sad. But maybe that is the price I have to pay. I don't know. It's like I have been called to walk this path, you know. It's like I got this invitation, and it's just like resonating so strongly with me that the more that time that goes, I cannot unsee it, you know. It's not like it is reality, but it is very sad. And I don't know how to handle it. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. Thank you, and I can definitely empathize. I don't dare to say I can definitely understand what you are going through, but I can somehow empathize with that. And as you say, yeah, maybe this is the price you have to pay, and that's the question. But yeah, I will say that I wouldn't say maybe that's the price you have to pay. Definitely, that's a price one has to pay. The question is whether I'm willing to pay the price or not. And it's one's choice, of course, right? I'm not here to tell anyone in their life do it or not, but and it's not only this particular situation you are sharing, I will say on our whole life, we are, how to say, we are invited to choose what to release and what to embrace on a daily basis so many times per day. And many times we consciously take, so to say, embrace the truth, and many times we unconsciously do not embrace the truth, or consciously sometimes. And I'm not saying that to go neurotic, but just to normalize. Many times we betray ourselves unconsciously many times per day. And that's part of what it means to be a conditioned soul. You're betraying yourself on and on, day after day, till you start to gain awareness of how much you were betraying yourself, and that becomes horribly painful. But somehow you start to celebrate that you are becoming aware of your previous betrayal, and as much as painful as it is I'm awakening. It's like child labor, right? It's like terribly painful, but someone's being born here. So there are reasons to celebrate amidst torture. So it's paradoxical, but that's how it works. So I will say this is something similar, right? And I don't want to talk like what about me or our particular group, so it remains more neutral. But of course, it's not the first time someone tells me something like that in connection to our group, but it goes beyond our group. It can apply to anything and everything. And yeah, we have to choose many times. What I will say always is like, if I have friends, real friends, not the 5,000 Facebook friends I have, among many of which are you, which I consider my friends, but many of them I do not even know who they are. But they are my friends in Facebook. Okay, nothing personal against them, but I wouldn't say I'm. What does it mean to be a friends with someone? Sometimes we use the word casually. But if I have a friend, a real friend or a real friendship, at least I'm willing to have that friendship. I will not allow a relationship to break because of a difference of opinion. Because you are inspired with someone I'm not inspired. If the friendship, quote unquote, a few quote unquotes, breaks because of that, I will doubt how much of a friendship was there to begin with. That's my take. I'm not one to sound I'm talking about everyone's life. And I'm saying that because I've gone through a few of those breakups. I mean, I no need to go into the details, but I've had some very painful distancing from people about, in some cases, even a philosophical point. A nuance in a philosophical point, not even like a gross thing that I'm saying Krishna is not real and the other is Krishna is real. Okay, I can understand it. It's difficult if both remain Gaudiya Vaishnavas. I mean, how can you be a Gaudiya Vaishnava saying Krishna is not real? But anyhow, a nuanced philosophical point, and the other person felt I can no longer continue this relationship. Okay? Totally painful, totally unexpected. I cannot force the other person to remain in a relationship. I wouldn't like the person to remain in a relationship. If the person is already thinking about leaving the relationship because of that, it's like what's the glue holding the relationship together? That we absolutely agree on everything? That's toxic. That's so unnuanced. No? If the contract to sign is we have to agree on everything to have a friendship, that doesn't sound like a friendship. That's very strange. So yeah. And eventually recently I heard that person was thinking, oh, if Maharaj realigns himself back with that nuance of philosophical thing, we have a difference, I'm considering reestablishing the friendship. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, thank you. On top of that, you're saying that with all respect and nothing personal to that particular person, but it's not how it works. Friendship is not, that's not how it works for me. At the end of the day, what is being said between the lines is, again, as you think like I think, we are friends. The moment you think differently, feel differently, I'm not willing to coexist with that diversity. I'm not willing to make the necessary effort to deal with that. And I'm sure it's difficult to deal with other people's diversity, but remember that not only the other person is different to you, you are different to that person also. So both are being tolerating each other. It's not just like I am the one who has now to tolerate a difference of opinion in the other person. We are all, it's always mutual. So yeah, it's part of the journey. I mean, it's not that we want to lose relationships, but I mean, again, it's all about what the relationships are based on. No, I mean, in the past, some people are friends with others because they share the common affinity to wine, to beer, to heroin. For many people, that's the glue in the relationship in a certain level. Once one of the two stop becoming a heroin addict, probably the relationship is over if the other one just wants to continue with that, and that's the only common language they kind of speak. It's not that you hold anything against the person, but if my relationship with you depends on me taking heroin for us to have a relationship, no, thank you. No, extreme example, but you can extend it to so many things. So yeah, I mean, again, it's not so much for me, and again, I don't know these friends you are referring to or the details of the situation. I don't want to speak too much more than I should, but a friendship for me is being interested in the relationship with the person, not so much what's your affiliation, whom you are listening from. I mean, that's part of who the person is, but that's not the totality of the person. No? It reminds me sometimes when I've been a few times walking on the streets, and sometimes you meet devotees here and there, whether it's here in Argentina, other places, in India also, and they ask you like, first question many times is, who's your guru? And despite my unique situation, how to reply to that in my case now, but beyond that, you can feel that the question is more about show me your affiliation card, right? Show me your institution, and depending on which is what the card says, I continue the conversation or not. And for me, that's basically absolutely impersonal. It's like you don't care who am I at all. You're not caring for me. You just want to see a membership card. I'm not interested in that. That's not friendship. That's not communication relationship. So again, it's painful, it's disconcerting, but sometimes, as you are saying, Vishaka, okay, you feel I have seen a few things, and again, it goes beyond this particular song. It's whatever one experiences. I've seen some things that I cannot unsee. And maybe other people haven't seen those things, and by this I don't mean to say we are superior. We have seen things other hasn't. We all see things that other haven't seen, and vice versa. So it's not who is better. Just when you see something, you cannot unsee that. That's the point. And yeah, relationship for me, a healthy relationship should hold space for allowing that to happen. Like, oh, my friend is seeing something I cannot see, and I won't reject the relationship because of that. I will be curious about that. Even if it's not in my interest, even if it's not my call, like the other person's call, but at least because I care for this person, I care for this thing that my friend saw and cannot unsee anymore. And somehow it's changing her life for better. If that's the case, if I'm your friend, I care about your wellness. So some things make you better. Even if it challenges me, and I may differ with, I will care for that because I care for you. And again, not everyone is willing to pay that price. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just how much each person is willing to invest in a relationship. Because to invest in a relationship is not just time, just sitting in front of the person. Okay, I'm doing my part in a relationship. It's in big part is allowing yourself to be transformed by what the other person is going through. Accompanying, being impacted by that, being affected. You will be changed by the other person. And not everyone is willing to pay that price. So at that moment, those people are actually being confronted with what's the actual meaning of friendship and a relationship. What's the actual price to pay? So yeah, not everyone is willing to do that. As basic as that sound, I will say, yeah, many spiritual people from any background and tradition, and I'm not saying I'm beyond that, we all, on some degree or another, still are terrified about the implications of genuine friendship. the surrender that it demands of any relationships, which ultimately every relationship should ideally converge into a form of friendship. The trust it takes, the risk taking it takes, the surrender, the confidence, the opening, the vulnerability, the adjustment, the sacrifice, the challenging of previous assumptions and biases. So many things are at stake if we really understand what's taking place. And when those things become evident, some people just run away horrified because they had been shown with a mirror. This is what it is actually about. Oh. And somehow they will say, no, I cannot continue this relationship because you're doing, and that somehow they need to just to rationalize that or explain that in a way that they are not shown like a coward running away from a real encounter. And all this takes place unconsciously. Again, I'm not criticizing the people. I'm just saying that's how we humans generally behave. So I think it's these dynamics, as confrontational as they may be, are healthy invitation for each one of us to realize, okay, what's a real relationship about? What's the price of it? Especially if we are in pursuit of the truth, and especially if we are in a group that claim to be in the pursuit of the truth. How much we are playing out those beliefs in how we relate to each other, how much we still keep betraying ourselves. And you will find all varieties there. And yeah, in order to progress, as Srila Maharaj will say, we may need to continue. Many times we'll need to continue alone. And some people will abandon us. He will give the imaginary of soldiers in war. Some people will fall on the battlefield. You need to continue your search. And if you're honest and sincere, you will always have protection and blessing and shelter and good company. At the end of the day, nobody's walking alone the path of honesty, because there are many other honest ones walking along us, even if we cannot see them yet, right? So that's as much as I can say without me trying to tell you what to do with your life, of course, because that's something I wouldn't like to do, but that's how it comes to me. And I would say it's worth, I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, but in my personal case, yeah, if we see something that is so true, so undeniable, as we were talking before, and so calling for us, we cannot undo that. We cannot return to a previous version of ourselves as much as the other person wants us to be our previous self. It's not possible. So it's not even that it's possible. It's just that it's not possible. So even trying to keep the relationship as we were before, it's basically an impossibility. So imagine trying to implement an impossibility. That's the worst possible thing you can do for yourself and your friends. So I think it's important to be honest and say, I've seen some things. This is who am I. I cannot undo them. I've been undone. But what I've seen, this is where I am now. I totally understand if you cannot get me now, if you cannot see what I'm seeing. I'm not better than you, but if you feel the need of distance, I'm up to that. It's not that I'm choosing that, but I have to follow what I've seen. It's too real not to follow it. And even if in the context of that I have to sacrifice some things, not because I want to lose relationship, but just because every call has a price, and different peoples are willing to pay different prices, and each one will be on their particular journey, which demands a certain price. And and it's fine. It's part of life also, right? I don't know if that helps, Visakha.
Yeah, it does. The weight of friendships, not all of my friendships are like very deep friendships. They're mostly very on the surface maybe, but we have history together. And but it's an ongoing process, I guess, because as you say, I cannot go back. There's no way back. There's no return. I wouldn't be able to live with myself in that way, because I have to follow my heart. I have to follow my heart. There's no other way.
And I will say one more thing, because I totally agree with what we were talking. We cannot betray ourselves. Hopefully, we reach that conclusion. At least not consciously, even if we still do it unconsciously, we cannot betray ourselves consciously. But also to know that even if at some point in the journey, some people or some relationships are paused or we become distant from some people, that also doesn't mean that's the end point of that particular relationship. Maybe in time and with years, the whole thing moves and changes and you reconnect from a different place. Not to say that will happen in every case, but I've seen that happening in my life, reconnecting with people both from beyond, before my Vaishnava background, from my teenage years, and people I've seen just now in this visit to Argentina after 27 years, and reconnecting with them from as much of a place we can reconnect in our particular lives. And the same has happened also in the Gaudiya Vaishnava circle with people that I have not been in touch for years, and we reconnected, and or other people I've been in touch for decades, and now we are not that connected. So many things, right? So leaving the field open, right? And trusting that at the end of the day, those things will get harmonized. If it's not happening all of it in one's lifetime, it's fine. And we can only control that much. So we have to concentrate of whatever we can control or choose is hopefully not to betray ourselves. And trusting that if I choose not to betray of myself and be as sincere as I can, that will create the most favorable possible influence in the environment, which may not be the result I'm expecting, but having that confidence that best thing I can do for everyone involved is to be as sincere as I can, as authentic as I can. Some may get it, some may not get it, but I'll try my best. Srila Semarasu says, sincerity is invincible. So, yeah. John is raising his hand. I don't know if it's something in connection to this.
It is.
It is.
If it allows, if the time allows, but I totally understand also if it does not.
Please.
Well, sorry if there's a little noise. My neighbors are in the backyard too. As you were speaking, I don't know, really the feelings just came to me of lost relationships and a desire to have some sort of like resolution or satisfaction, even in relationships that have come apart painfully, and ones that have not, like people that you just miss from your past that you loved. Maybe they're already out of this body and lifetime. And how much of that how much of that is part of bhakti, I guess, instead of it, like, is that opposed to putting your whole heart and love into your God? How important are those relationships and attachment in those relationships? And I guess how to harmonize those three, like the self, its need and attachment and love for others, and for the center, for God. I guess partly
it's
it
another
comes
question.
from...
It's tricky. It's related, but it's tricky because it's another question. It's another category. But we can say something. Yeah. Thank you.
If I say just the word detachment, like sometimes early on in my own bhakti journey, it was like I'm detached from family, I'm detached from this and that. And I'm connected to the center, and like partly that came out to fill me with a love and an ability to see people as equals. That's maybe the first time in my life I ever had that experience, or only time in my life I ever had that experience. And yet, like, we don't want to detach impersonally is a word that kept coming up. So I don't know, maybe you can say something more there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I will say, of course, different strokes for different folks in the sense of, as you mentioned, the word detachment gave you some insight and benefits, not only the word, but how it was presented and internalized by you, though in time you felt, probably there was some dysfunctionality also in how I internalized the word, and then I need to express the word or even forget that word and bring the word attachment into the picture to balance detachment. But maybe eventually you feel, I need to bring the word detachment again into the picture because now attachment is getting too much. So gradually, by bringing these two, gradually the two of them balance each other, and we get to find a proper place for all of this, which at the end of the day, of course, the ideal picture is nothing is left out, nothing is left behind. It's not that because I'm so madly in love with Krishna, oh, I forgot to feed my baby, or whatever. I'm being emotionally indifferent to my husband, or I'm neglectful with my child because I'm so devotional. That's not the idea, but also not the other way around, because I want to be human and keep connected with my family members. I do it too much to the point that it becomes self-centered. Because let's be honest, many times our relationships and roles in the relationships many times converge in us, and we forgot a bigger picture. So it's a constant recalibration. So everyone enters into that picture, and the center is established as the proper center, and everything else is put into its place. And again, this is a back and forth that may take a long time. And I understand that in the beginning sometimes, not for everyone, but for many, indeed, this notion of detachment was kind of the introduction card to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which is a little bit misleading because, as Prabhupada said, this is not the science of detachment, but the science of attachment. How to get attached to everything properly, right? But sometimes for that to happen, you need detachment, and detachment is not indifference, right? That's the thing. Detachment is not, because sometimes, again, we use the word detachment just to be emotionally absent. We justify our running away, as I was talking before, running away from a real encounter with someone in the name of detachment. I bring that detachment card so I don't have to be vulnerable, basically. Because real intimacy, and I'm not talking here about just sexual intimacy, real intimacy of any sort requires direct encounter in a deep way, in a very naked way, existentially. And most people is terrified about that. So we bring the word detachment so we don't need to deal with all that stuff. And I present myself as very transcendental because we equate detachment with being transcendental, which is another layer of disaster. And then you're ready for the madhouse and you're very dysfunctional, but you're convinced that you're utterly transcendental and you need urgent therapy. But also you find another type of madness, which has people who is not using the word detachment at all, and they are extremely attached to everything, and that's its own madhouse as well. So again, when you go too much to any of the two extremes, you end up reaching the same place, so to say, right? 360 degrees and you're back on. No? So we want the middle path. That's why Rupa Goswami speaks of Yukta Vairagya, like balanced detachment. And detachment, again, like the other day I was I don't know why I did that, but I think because my mom bought something, say, oh, I bought some whatever, a cookie. And I love my mom, but I know that she doesn't read all the labels and all the details, and I'm a little bit like, no, they are vegan. Are you sure? Yeah, they're. Let's see. So I take the label was like. So I tried to take the label as close as I could, but of course when it was too close, I lost sight of the label. Right? I mean, long story short, they were not vegan, but that's not the main point of the story. The main point was like it was so close that I lost sight of it. I gave the example of the hand sometime, right? It's too close, I don't see my hand. But even if you try to read the book, you need a distance. If it's too far, I cannot read it. If it's too close, I cannot read it. I need the exact middle point. So that's how it works. And again, it's a whole daily recalibration. Sometimes we realize, I'm getting a little bit too emotionally detached, too indifferent to this situation. I'm escaping human encounter here. I need to go through it while remaining present and not getting triggered by whatever. And sometimes we go to the other extreme. I'm getting too entangled here. I'm getting too attached, too dependent, too overly identify with this role and relationship and losing sight of who I actually am and who the other person actually is and who the center is. And so you recalibrate. And again, it's a daily vigilance, I will say. I cannot give you just the magic pill to swallow and there you are, but but just to keep it as a daily discipline of recalibration. And understanding also that at times of the journey we may need to bring more one word and more the other, but one is not meant to extinguish the other. No, it's not that we're against detachment, against attachment. And that's why, interestingly, the Sanskrit for detachment includes the word attachment, which is vairagya. But vairagya means vaishishta raga, which means vairagya translated as detachment. Vairagya means a special type of attachment. In other words, you develop a special attachment for the center, in this case Krishna, the all attractive, and that will allow you to detach from everything in the proper way. And detach from everything, I mean, take the necessary distance to see everything for what it is, to gain proper perspective. So proper attachment brings proper detachment. So one is not annihilating the other. One is both are in the service of each other. So what do you think, John? Do you accept this mudra?
I do. Of course, it makes you then think of self-relation to, and how that plays into one's ability to, and willingness to see others and be seen by others and see God in our limited way, and try and be willing to be honest about who we are in our misidentifications, my misidentification.
Yeah. And again, of course, we cannot just force ourselves to be up again, seeing everything from the biggest picture possible in one shot. So we have to acknowledge where we are and work from there, while at least reminding us theoretically there is a center. That is not me, that is not my cat, that is not my house, that is not all the things that start with my. While I'm still navigating the Ahammameti, the I, me, mine ocean, reminding myself there's something else. And yeah, I'm working through that gradually in the messiness of that navigation process, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can go to a breakout room before going to Sherry's offering. And we have somehow addressed two different questions, but somehow related to relationships and truth and pursuit. Sherry, sorry?
I'm feeling like I can wait till next time, since
But we are feeling we may not be able to wait. So
okay.
Who knows? We'll see. We have a few minutes. If you feel like it, you invite you to share. If not, no problem. Let's see what happens after the churning room. We invite you there for a few minutes and see you back soon. Welcome back. Hoping you had a good churning together. And before we go to Sherry, let me ask a few of you, if you are willing to share just 1 minute jewel you found in the ocean of churning private rooms. Let's invite Carrie from DC. I don't know if you are in DC, but we met in DC for sure.
I'm joining you today from Milan, Italy. And when I started this call, I was off video because I was eating a really huge meal at Govinda's in Milan, just down the street from my hotel.
We don't want to interrupt that.
I know, it was delicious, but yes. We had a really nice call. These things always evolve, right? I think we ended up having a discussion that picked up on a thread and then went somewhere else. But we were talking about at the end about how do we practice being in service, and I was sharing. I'll just share what I shared with the group in the call or in the breakout room, that I have a very, on its face, very typical life that any non-devotee would have, and so I'm constantly asking myself, how do I bring my service into that? And I'm not at this particular place I'm at in my life right now. I'm not really looking to necessarily change the proportion of time I spend doing devotee things and non-devotee things, but it's more like how do I bring the devotee side, how do I integrate everything? And so that's where I've been. I spend all day. I end up, that pops into my mind at different points, and I'm always asking myself, like, how do I do that? How do I keep doing it?
Yeah, thank you. It's an ongoing question, just in case, also to all of us. Yeah, integration. Yeah, thank you. Renee, please share with us your 1 minute jewel.
We kept returning to the concept of how friendships can change us, and we tied that back to the original prayer of Thomas Merton, of being very welcome and confident to greet this uncertainty that is life. Yeah.
Thank you. And technical detail, the prayers by Thomas Keating. No, by Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton had a whole bunch of beautiful prayers also. we may start with some of his some other day for sure. Thank you, Renee. Thank you. So let's invite Sherry, who raised her hand. Some offerings there. We may not have too much time, but we have enough minutes, I trust, to explore together a little bit more before we leave today. Welcome.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Maharaj. This call has been really so much to examine and really reflect on, and it just seems like it's been that kind of day. And my thoughts are kind of like all over the place. So let me do my best here. This is something that kind of came up organically in our sisterhood meeting this morning. I was discussing a certain very visceral feeling that I have been having recently. It's not the first time I've ever had this feeling, but essentially, I guess I'm hoping you can maybe just share some of your thoughts on it. And the feeling is one of, we're, in my life anyway, I'm so distracted by so much. Even at my job, it's a very like high demand time kind of job. Like this has to run this way, Like it's like a constant sort of survival, like do this, do that, get that, do that. And then, of course, we fill up our other time with our scrolling and, lots of good things too, like classes and reading. And the other day I was driving home and I didn't have anywhere to go. It had been a busy week, but this was the first night I didn't have anywhere to go. And it had been such a long time since I'd felt this feeling, but I felt such a visceral feeling in my heart of deep, deep sorrow. But it was also mixed with, I don't want to say happiness, but mixed with a beauty. It was this deep, sorrowful place that I know is a place I've been avoiding, right? I know it's a place I avoid, and probably so many people avoid this place, right? And I was trying very hard to say, okay, you know what? Go home and sit with this. Like, go into this feeling. Don't try and move away from it. And I think, just by the nature of being human and our human experience, we many times don't have that opportunity to go into that deep place. And I guess what I'm wondering about, and maybe want to hear your thoughts on, I feel like it's a God place. I feel like it's a God place. And how do we work with that? And just your thoughts on that, I guess, mainly is what I was interested in.
Well, thank you. Thank you all, you, Vishaka, and so many of you also bringing, personal stuff in the good sense of the term, because it keeps the whole thing radically personal, and and it's not exclusive to your own journey, as you may know, but it's personal enough for us to relate to that also. I think that's when the magic happens. Someone may present their own story, their own narrative, so to say, and we are not the other person. We listeners are not the person, but we can listen to that and then connect to our own story, and that's so needed to go through those moments every single day. So it's interesting what you are mentioning, especially, of course, you had some discussion, the sisterhood, and I trust that has been enough for the day, probably. I will just add 2 words, because the main part has already been shared in your moments with the sisters earlier today. But it's interesting because you were talking about sorrow and some type of sweetness in that, and I'm working on something. I'm writing a short piece today, and I've been kind of editing that and going back and forth. And it's funny because the very next, and I have not finished. I'm trying to finish it today, just 2 pages. And I just marked the next paragraph I have to work on, and the next paragraph is basically about this. So if you allow me, I can read it. It's short. I don't want to make it too self-referential, but it's just very synchronistic. So it's a whole, so it's chapter of a future book, whatever that comes. That's not the 4th one. And this is on the term Madhurya in Sanskrit. And there are many ways to speak about Madhurya, of course. So in this paragraph, it says, however, many other things said before about what Madhurya is. Madhurya is not limited to romantic interaction, right? Because many times we interpret Madhurya Rasa, the gopis, Krishna. At its deepest level, it describes intimacy with reality itself. To approach the divine through sweetness, Madhurya, is to allow life in all its dimensions, joy and sorrow, beauty and confrontation, to reach us without shield. Yes, there is a paradoxical sweetness even in suffering, if we learn to contact it with intimacy. Whatever is touched by intimacy acquires its own unique expression of sweetness. At that junction, illusion can only dissolve and reality can only draw near. Anyhow, that's the paragraph. But I feel it's quite connected to what you just said. No, this point that what you are describing, intimacy, right? Like you are sitting with something and allowing that to get closer, or you to get closer to that. And even if it's sorrow, even if it's pain, loss, betrayal, suffering, if you allow it to get it intimate, it brings its own sweetness, its own flavor, its own positive gift. Because sometimes we have this dualistic thinking. I only want the happy, joy stuff, and the other things is avoidable. And in that moment, generally, the happiness we look for is also devoid of intimacy. we look for an idealized idea of joy, which doesn't include intimacy, and we escape from suffering and pain because it involves intimacy. So we remain devoid of intimacy altogether, and that keeps us in a shallow stage of living, very unsatisfying, I will say. So for me, the importance is intimacy, which means, again, the daring to sit together and get closer to things. That's why the deepest portion of the Vedas are called the Upanishads, right? That's one of the meanings that's coming now. Upanishads, basically, the word Upanishad means come and sit close. So, of course, historically, it's taken in the sense of a student sits close to a guru and something confidential is whispered, something that you cannot say openly. If you're not close enough, you won't be hearing. But another way of reading it in this context is intimacy. Now, sit close with whatever is inviting you to sit close. Again, it may not be an official guru sitting in a vyasasana whispering you a mantra. It may be an emotion inside of you it can barely be a guru that is trying to teach you something, but you just need to sit close enough to listen to the secret it's trying to whisper, right? And again, it may be painful. Like a guru may share a secret to a disciple, and the secret or the teaching may be unsettling, uncomfortable. It's not that it's all like, So nice. Sometimes like, ooh, it was an arrow right here, a thunderbolt right in the chest. But at the same time, there is something simultaneously saying, but that's so true. That rings so true. It's opening me in two, but it's so true. So again, realm of paradox. Both aren't. Now both are plausible. So yeah, I will just share these words in how to say as a way of reassuring what you've been gone through, reassuring your experiences. That is great that you were able to have a glimpse or more of that of this apparent contradiction of deep sorrow and something deeply beautiful in its own way. And it's not that you are going crazy, so to say, like you cannot feel those things together. Who say that? On the contrary, the crazy ones are the dualistic ones, compartmentalize everything instead of integrating. So, yeah, Srila Sridhar Maharaj will often speak about there is the possibility of sweetness in suffering. He will say that's possible. He will say it's possible that suffering is sweet. And again, for me, it's all about this idea of allowing things to be intimate, allowing intimacy to happen in whatever ways. Of course, that brings its own challenging, its own pain, its own unsettling, and its own sweetness, and its own insight, and its own growth. And that's how we become wholesome people, right? Like we can hold space as a vessel to all the things coming at the same time. It's suffering, and it's sweet, and it's insightful, and it's challenging, and it's beautiful. And you have the capacity of going through all that at the same time without becoming bipolar, so to say, or tripolar. That's for me the sign of a mature integration of complexity. So I don't know if that hopefully complements whatever you shared earlier today in the.
Oh, yeah, we had such a really wonderful discussion, and so much came up, and I think it's still coming up for me. So yeah, I really appreciate that, and thank you for reading what you were writing. Yeah.
Yeah, and just will add as much as your busyness allows you and everyone's busyness, but sometimes it's as much as we can to have space of solitude to continue processing situations like that, right? Because sometimes in the noisiness of daily lives, we do not tend, we do not attend, and we do not tend to to those important messages. And as you say, some of that busyness is unavoidable. But there are some others, as you say, the scrolling busyness, that can be avoidable to some degree at least. And as much as we can make it sustainable, we can craft spaces of solitude to contact those sacred moments as the ones you share, to allow that to sink deeper in us. Yeah.
Thanks, Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you. And before we put to rest our sharing, let's go to one more breakthrough room to share again a little bit more, turn together about this paradoxical, simultaneous coexistence of apparently contradictory emotions and how that can add to becoming a more wholesome, nuanced human being, spiritual practitioner, whatever you may need to bring to the table. We give you a few more minutes and then we see us back before our final goodbye today. Okay. Welcome back. Hopefully you had a good sharing room. And not want to take any more of your time, we will put our sharing to rest today. Expressing deep gratitude to each one of you for your presence, your willingness, your openness, your inquiries, your bearing witness of each other's opening of their hearts. So looking forward for further adventures together. And seeing you next Saturday, same time, same channel. Ever open heart. Srimad Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Harinam Prabhu ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanand Hari Hari Bol.